Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Dr. Kate Boyd and I'm really glad you're here. Today I'm going to talk about 4-note chords at the piano. I'm using an exercise by Dohnanyi from his Essential Finger Exercises for Piano, and we're going to be talking about exercise number 24 from that book. I really feel like we're on this journey together. Even though I'm teaching you in this video, I too am always working on my technique, and I've really been enjoying the opportunity to revisit each of these exercises and to practice them as I get ready to teach them and talk about them. When we play the piano, there are very often going to be places where we're going to need to play the same chord in multiple different inversions up and down the keyboard, and that is exactly what this exercise is really helpful at practicing. This exercise is all about chords and inversions. We're going to start off with a 4-note chord in root position, and we'll play that in major. Then we'll do the inversions of that. Then we're going to play that chord in minor, do the inversions. Then we're going to play a diminished 7th chord, do all the inversions, and then we're going to come down with the dominant 7th chord that leads to our new key. That's the pattern, but I'm going to explain it to you in more detail now. So starting in B flat major, we're going to play a 4-note chord. And now the inversions. And now we're going to play the minor chord, so B flat minor. And then again we're playing the inversions, so first inversion and second inversion. Now we're going to play a diminished 7th chord, all the notes of it. So we'll start on B flat, we're going to stack minor thirds on top of it, so B flat, minor third, minor third, minor third, minor third. There's our chord, okay? Now we're going to do the first inversion, so just move up one note, build a new chord, move up one note, next inversion. Right? So that's how that goes, except solids. Then when we get to the top, we lower one note, which is the second note from the top, and then that becomes the root of our new dominant 7th chord. So it's F sharp 7, which is going to lead us to B. So it's like this. Then we go down in inversions. Now here we are in our new key, B major. B major. Now B minor. And then diminished. Lower that note, and then it becomes G7, which is the dominant of C. So that's how the exercise is set up. I'm going to demonstrate just going through a couple of keys so that you can hear and see how the pattern repeats. So B flat major, B flat minor, flat diminished, F sharp dominant, so it goes to B major, B minor, B diminished, and now G7, and that leads to C, etc. All right, so that's how the exercise is set up. Now, just as a quick aside, if you are finding the music theory elements that I'm mentioning in this video to be new and confusing, then I recommend that you take a look at a music theory book and learn a little bit about some of the things I'm talking about. The specific concepts that would be helpful for you to learn about are the concept of major chords, minor chords, 7th chords, which have different qualities. We have diminished 7th chords, and we have dominant 7th chords that are relevant to this exercise. Additionally, you're going to want to be comfortable with the idea of what an interval is. Understanding an interval is how we measure from one note to the next. So getting comfortable with those music theory elements will be very helpful, not only in this exercise, but also in your work as a pianist. There are a lot of different places you can learn about these concepts. I'm going to link to one music theory book that's for pianists, especially, in the description below, that I think is a good resource, and it's a good series for pianists who want to learn about theory at the piano. So here are some tips on how to practice this exercise. First, like I've said in my other finger exercise videos, you're going to want to just start off by memorizing the pattern. It's major, minor, diminished, dominant, seventh. I know it can be a little bit tricky at first, but once you get the hang of it, you'll be very glad that you're not constantly looking at the music to find the next chord. Just look down and you'll be able to see the inversions, and it'll make the experience of practicing it much easier. Another tip about practicing this is that you're going to practice it slowly. The purpose of this exercise is to learn how to play loud, to learn how to play chord inversions, and you're really never going to be practicing this fast. This is not a speed exercise. This is a sound quality exercise and a chord inversion exercise. And so in your own practice, even if you're just doing this, and I did this way for a while when I was first learning this exercise, I would practice this, and then I'd be like, okay, right? And I'd be finding the next inversion. That's okay. Just practice it super duper slowly. You'll eventually start to be able to find the next inversions smoothly. My third practice tip is to practice the octaves first, just to learn the pattern. That can be really, really helpful. So here's what I mean. Starting on B flat. So I'm just going to play the outer notes. Now minor, and I'm just arpeggiating here. Now the diminished. Now dominant. Right, and you can just continue, right? So just to learn the pattern, that can be super helpful. And then my fourth tip on practicing is use your pedal. And the reason I'm pedaling this as opposed to just playing it dry is because that helps give the ear a continuous line to listen for. Whereas if I just practice like this, it doesn't really sound very musical. It doesn't sound very pleasing. Whereas if I use the pedal, then that sounds like a continuous pattern and something that actually my ear recognizes as music. Now I want to talk a little bit about a couple of simplifications of this exercise. So one thing you can do, especially if diminished and dominant seventh chords are a little bit confusing, is just play the major and minor. Just literally play the major inversion, and then the minor inversion, and then major, B major, and then the minor, and then C major, etc. Right? So you can just do all the major and minor chords. Now, if your hand is too small to reach an octave, then just do triads. So, like you can do that way, doing the bottom three notes, or you can do the top three notes, right? So you can go, or you can do it 5-2-1 as root position. You can omit notes in order to have it lie better under your hand, so that you are able to get the benefits of jumping from one chord to the next. I just want to say a quick word about hand size. It takes large hands to play big seventh chords, to play all the notes of big seventh chords, and there are actually some of them that I can't reach. And if that's the case, then just leave out the top note and play 4-note seventh chords, and you will still get so much benefit from this exercise. The last thing you want to do is keep your hand extended in the air through the entire exercise and trying to reach chords that are a little too big for you. That will defeat the purpose of practicing this exercise and could lead to injury if you practiced it too much that way. So instead of playing, which is really actually kind of hard for me, like it's a big stretch, you can just play 4 notes. That kind of thing. This exercise has one exciting variant, and that is arpeggiated chords. So instead of solid, we play etc. Right? And so I want to just talk a little bit about that very briefly. So you can practice that with a rolling hand. I'm rolling my wrist. That's how I keep a loose wrist. Also, when you're going up, notice that the inversion is less than an octave, right? It's just a 6 down. So So you're not going to want to practice. I see a lot of times students go like this, and then they lift their whole hand and go. But instead, just play continuous. Legato, right? Then you have to jump here when you come down. But going up, it can be continuous. And then so in other words, you're only jumping when you're coming down and the interval exceeds an octave. But going up, the intervals are smaller than an octave, so practice closing and opening your hands. Another thing you can do when you practice the arpeggiated version of this is to practice with varying touches. So like I've been demonstrating with legato, but you can also practice staccato. You can even practice staccato in one hand and legato in the other hand. You can practice. Right? So there's a lot of different things you can do. You can do one hand loud, the other hand soft, because the arpeggiated version of this is not an exercise in loud playing, so you can play it really soft. You can play one hand loud, or the other way around. Right, so there are different variants you can do on the arpeggiated version. I've made a demo video for both the solid version of this exercise and the arpeggiated version of this exercise. And you can see them by clicking on these links here. And it is literally just a playthrough of the exercise and all the keys as written by Dohnanyi, because you know, it's one thing to talk about it, but another thing to actually hear somebody play the whole thing all the way through. I'll see you in my next technique video, and until then, happy practicing.